Hi, everyone. I'm Claire Thompson, the soon-to-be past chair of FIPWiSE. Welcome to this latest installment of the FIPWiSE podcast. So FIPWiSE, if you didn't know anything about it, it's FIP's Women in Science and Education initiative. We were established as an initiative almost 4 years ago. My goodness, time flies. And our mantra is around engaging, enabling, and inspiring girls and women in science and education to be the best that they can possibly be throughout pharmacy and pharmaceutical science. So it's my pleasure today, as part of my handover, to introduce the new chair of FIPWiSE, Dr. Bahijja Raimi-Abraham. Now, I'm not going to do her the significant amount of justice by trying to introduce her. So, Bahijja, would you mind introducing yourself, please?
Yes, of course. Well, firstly, thank you for having me on Fight. I've been admiring your podcast for a while, so I'm really excited that we get this opportunity to talk. So I am Dr. Bahijja Raimi-Abraham. Um, I can summarize myself as what we call three P's and an F. So the three P's being a pharmacist, I'm a pharmacist, a pharmaceutical scientist, and a podcaster. And the F, which I've started adding, is that I'm a founder. So I'm a founder of a social enterprise, and I currently have a passion project which I'm working on. I am currently a associate professor, or for those in the UK, senior lecturer at King's College London, where I lead my research group, the Raimi-Abraham Group, and our research is broadly in the area of addressing pharmaceutical challenges in infectious diseases, where we're creating non-animal based infectious disease models and then looking at the role or the use or application of nanotechnology for the dual purpose of diagnosing and treating latent and asymptomatic infectious diseases. Additionally, I'm the founder of King's College London Fight the Fakes chapter, where I'm extending my efforts to address the issues of substandard and falsified medicines with a focus on antimicrobials, although now it is a little bit broader, and really looking at the impact that fake medicines have on patient outcomes, patient mortality. And the last bit of information that I'd like people to know about me is my passion projects, which is Scientifically Speaking, and my podcast, Monday Science. A very proud moment for us last year was Monday Science was listed on Amazon Music's Best Podcast of the Week. That was February 2023, which is very exciting.
Wow.
Yes, I cried when I got when I got the notification. I didn't know how to cope. It was really an exciting and amazing achievement. I started the podcast during the pandemic, and initially starting it without expecting people to listen. That sounds weird, but yes. And I'm proud of how it's grown. And bringing everything together in terms of my passions with my agency, I guess I'd call it. It's called Scientifically Speaking, which is STEAM focused and specializes in science communication, immersive experiences, activities, and education. And I think that's pretty much it. There's probably more I've missed out about myself.
I mean, I think I would love to fill the entire podcast with talking about some of the things that you're already involved with, but I'm really delighted that you are adding FitWise to that repertoire, and to the things that you want to drive forward. Now, when we had put out the call for a new chair for FitWise, I mean, I was astounded by the quantity and the quality of the applicants. It was overwhelming to see that what we have achieved within FitWise so far has been acknowledged, and that others aspire to be part of it. So it was phenomenal. I cried. But what I love to hear, Bahijja, is about what why you're passionate about getting involved in FitWise, and also your experience with gender equality or inequality in the past.
Yeah, so full disclosure, when the advert came out for the FIP Chairwise position, I've been experiencing FOMO for a long time when it relates to FIPWise. So FOMO being fear of missing out. I have admired from afar and close the activities and what the initiative has been able to achieve in terms of championing and supporting women in science and education. I think the fact that you know, the initiative has achieved so much over the years, and I've been lucky to be able to be part of some of the activities, the FIPWiSE Word series, and excuse me, being able to, in that moment, discuss sort of the enablers and hurdles of in my experience as a woman in pharmaceutical science and in education. It was really, it's been, how do I put it? It's been an interesting few years. And I think in the last few years, maybe initiated by the pandemic, and I know that FIPWiSE was sort of the inception was in 2020, and I feel that that came at a time where silence wasn't enough. There's so many different challenges that are going on in the world, but if we keep it focused on science and education, the fact that this initiative came about at a time where we needed more of a voice in this area really inspired me. And that's why I said I've had FOMO, in the sense that I've been admiring from afar. I've gotten involved. I've wanted to get involved, but the opportunity to get involved in such a big way, by being the chair, really was, you know, it's an amazing opportunity. But one of the key things that I admire with the FIPWiSE initiative is the fact that not only is there an advocacy and awareness element, there's also a how are we going to make a difference? What is the change we're trying to, you know, how are we informing um, and supporting change? And so that's something that really drew me, you know, to the initiative. As it relates to gender inequality and gender inequity, um, you know, I'm sitting here as a Black woman in pharmaceutical science and pharmacy education, and I think that there's a part of me that has had to harden myself to experiences and numb myself to certain things to get by. That's just, you know, full honesty and full disclosure. And when I started getting into leadership positions, leading my own group, it was a time where I can't, even if I'm going to, for my own coping mechanisms, we can talk about that, but for my own coping mechanisms, just try and get my head down and, okay, I'm just going to do this, but I'm helping other people. I realized that there's more that needs to be done, and I want to be part of that. I want to be part of the solution. So really, in a sort of long-winded way, an opportunity to be part of the solution is important to me, because that's in line with my passion. That's what drives me. I'm driven by, if I see something that's not right, I want to get involved to solve it. And so having the opportunity, the privilege to step into your fabulous shoes, and you know, support the initiative in this way, it means a lot to me. And yes, there was another crying moment when I got the email as well. So yeah, it's been lots of positive tears. So yeah.
But you can, are you comfortable with sharing with us some of the things that you felt like you had to become numb to? I dare say that there'll be plenty of people who listen to this who have experienced the same thing, and I think that when we become leaders, we have to change our position, because you know leaders are here to serve, and we then have to protect those around us. So, would you be comfortable with sharing some of those
Yeah,
experiences?
it and yes, and also thank you for asking if I'll be comfortable to share, because over time I've become more vocal, but in different ways around my experiences. I think there's something around, um I'm trying to find the best way of wording this, because if I relate specifically to my experience, there's still few women in science and education. There's still few Black women in science and education. And there's when you're you know, making steps and strides in your career, on some level you have this, let me say, I had this fear that communicate that by communicating the realities of some of my experiences will put people off, and will then say, oh, do you know what? No, I don't want to go into that sector
Mhm.
or whatever, because there isn't a space for me there.
Mhm.
Um, and and then I realized that, okay, by me And I don't want to put that pressure and responsibility on myself, but there is something about when people can see like, they realize that like can, like can thrive in that
Oh,
space.
absolutely. Being visible sometimes is the best thing that
Exactly.
we can be, but also pressure's a privilege. It
Pressure,
really
yeah,
is.
100%, 100%. And so I think things that I like microaggressions, a microaggression where you're question where you're not quite sure, was that something that were they being unkind there? Was that statement um did I imagine that that statement was coming from a negative place? Microaggressions is really something that um I would say I have experienced over time that contributed to things in the FIPWiSE words series that I did. I talked about imposter syndrome, and what people don't realize is those microaggressions can feed into you feeling you don't belong in a space, you don't belong, and you shouldn't be. You aren't who you think you are. And I would say experiences where I remember this one example. I should probably give an example. um, I remember this one example where I was I was so it's an organization of some sort. They were having regular webinars or talks. Sorry, it wasn't webinars, talks, inviting experts. And up to this point, they had never felt the need to interview any of the people. They were just grateful that these people, like people, were contributing. And my friend shared details of my CV and said, "Oh, I have a friend who's, this is what she's doing. She's an academic. It's great. It's amazing." And they were very insistent. And to be fair, she highlighted this to me. I didn't even know the backstory. I was just, oh, okay, fine. And they were insistent that they needed to meet me and interview me before getting the okay, but they hadn't done this to other people before.
Mm.
And for the sake of peace, I said to my friend, "It's fine, I'm happy to have a chat." And I remember in the conversation I had with this individual, if I look back on it, they were trying to push a response out of me because it's almost like they didn't believe that somebody who looked like me had achieved all the different things that I had achieved. So they kept pushing, but I was just professional. I would respond.
Mm.
And then the final sort of statement was this person said, "Oh, you probably only get called, you probably only get asked to speak at you probably only get asked to speak at events or conferences because you're a Black woman, isn't it? That's pretty much it."
How dare they?
Right.
Dare they?
And but again, this is where, if we go back to what I said at the start, where a part of my coping mechanism has been numbness. Not good, but I'm just saying a part of my coping mechanism has been numbness. And that has allowed me to be quite quick-witted in my response. So when she said that, I paused. I actually thought about it. I paused. I said, no, I actually think the reason why I've been asked to speak and speak at conferences because I'm actually good, like I'm quite good.
Wonderful.
And
Wonderful. Well done. Well
yeah,
done you for not just for, I mean, there's a huge thing to say for reflecting and responding and not reacting to taking that route rather than treating that contempt with a vicious response. And yeah, you are good.
thank you.
You are good. So
Thank
yeah,
you. And
well done you for standing
thank
up for
you.
yourself.
Thank you. And she was, the person, she was shocked. And also what saddened me in hindsight was that that was another woman. Doesn't, when we talk about the different hats we wear, our
Mm.
different diversity hats, um, and the intersectionality with that. I am a Black woman. That's something that people might use to define me. But I was disappointed that another woman was trying to bring me down.
Mm.
And I think that the importance of women supporting women plus with our allies, it's so important. And that experience is something that it affected me. But again, when you think about when we go about microaggressions, and this was highlighted during the pandemic, the mental health impact of microaggressions, the mental health impact of sexism, of racism, all these things.
Mm.
And that conversation played on my mind for so long. I questioned, am I actually good enough? Even though and I was like, am I good enough? And so that prompted me to I had to find ways of coping. So ways that I've coped with imposter syndrome, ways I've coped with when somebody questions my worth is sometimes it's I just write on like I have my CV, but I also have a sheet of paper, or now digital, or my iPad, where I have to sometimes look pen to paper, black and white, the things I've achieved, just to
Mhm.
remind me that it's not all in my head. That imposter that I think I am, it's not there because this is what I've achieved.
Mhm.
And so that's just one example, but unfortunately things that I've heard, I've had people share with me experiences they've had, and what saddens me, which is something I wanted to cover, in our conversation today, is the silencing that comes with experiences that different people have. Sometimes we silence ourselves just for peace, to keep the peace going, just to keep going. And we need to do less of that. And I believe that's already something that um, FIPWiSE has been doing. There
Mhm.
isn't silence. You guys have, I say you guys, I'm part of you now, so I'm happy. We have been vocal and having those difficult conversations to influence change. And I think that's one of the most important things that we can do. It starts from a conversation, really.
It does, and advocating for each other. I'm not a fan of the word ally. For me, it's too
Mm,
passive, and we need to be active, as part of
active.
this movement. But yeah, fully supportive, and thank you for bringing us back to the topic of
It's okay.
Otherwise, we could be talking about imposter
Yes.
syndrome and advocating for long into the darkness. But can you tell us about what your plans and your aspirations are for FIPWiSE?
Yeah, so I'm interested in three main areas, so three main themes. Firstly, it's expanding our global representation and building an inclusive, sorry, FIPWiSE voice. Um, we've already got good representation as part of the initiative, but I really want to amplify that by making sure that we are creating or developing solutions that are tailored, taking into account regions, taking into account cultures as well. So within that, I'm hoping that we can do, sounds very technical, but a comprehensive needs assessment. So we can understand what our community needs, what's important in specific regions. The Rising Stars Initiative, amazing, love it. And I want to build up on that. I really want us to look more into the mentorship side of things. How can we build? Mentorship is so important. I've benefited from formal and informal mentors, people who I've said, can we have a quick catch up? Not realizing they're my mentor, hint, hint. And that's very important for me. And also with the Rising Stars Initiative, it's amazing. We talked about it earlier on, visibility. If we see, if we can see more people, if we can see more people that are in areas and spaces that we didn't think we could be, or there wasn't a place for us, if we see what they're doing, it can be motivational. It can help that that is possible, and that can also help to facilitate networking and collaborations, whatever and I'm not saying collaboration from an academic standpoint, just collaborations, what that means, whatever that means to an individual. um and then I really like the toolkit. So essentially, as you can tell, it's building up on things that have already been established, but I just want to build them up and take them to the next level. Um, Going back to what I'm drawn to with the initiative, which is seeing the problem, addressing the problem, but providing solutions. I think the toolkit is amazing, but I would like to see more examples of it being implemented in different sectors, in academia and industry. Can we share what's, knowledge exchange? Can we share what the best practices are? So that, again, best practices tailoring with cultural considerations, regional considerations, and really getting more of our external partners and stakeholders to endorse and implement the toolkit moving forward. And I would say those are my key the three key things that I would want to achieve.
Wonderful. So I'm delighted that you've picked on two of the things that I'm most proud of that we've achieved in my tenure as FIPWiSE chair. So one's the Rising Stars program. Phenomenal. The number and the expertise and the diversity of applicants that we had for that. And when we announced that we had Rising Stars around the globe, it was an incredible achievement. It was more than I could ever have dreamed that we could achieve. And I'm delighted to hear that, we can't do everything on our own. I've tried to divide myself in 4 or 6 for a number of years and hadn't achieved it. So I'm delighted to hear that not only are you going to continue with the Rising Star program, but actually deploy the wonderful Rising Stars that we have to help with the voice, with the initiative, with the activities that we already have ongoing within FIPWiSE. And the other piece is the toolkit, so the positive practice toolkit that we published. So there are 5 factors within it. So the first one, equal incentives for equal work. The second is work-life balance. The third, creating supportive and safe working environments. The fourth, opportunities for professional development, recognition and empowerment. And the fifth is women in leadership. Now, this sits not just within our sector, but these are positive practices that can roll across just about any sector. Could you pull out one of those factors and talk us about how you would like to implement, or how you see this going forward, that we can have the most impact through that factor?
Yeah, so if you had asked me this question maybe, we're in 2024 now, so maybe 2 years ago, asked me this question 2 years ago, I may have had a different response. And that could be tailored to, that could have been a result of my experience and perception of the global need. I'm focusing on creating supportive and safe working environments. And I'll explain why. So part of the work that I do, whether it's my research academic work or with Fight the Fates, is I do get the opportunity to travel to different parts of the world and to establish partnerships, part of the research. And something that kept coming up and has been coming up in my conversations with people and speaking it is feeling safe at work, and taking into account that when we all turn up to work, when students come to university, when whoever, whenever everybody, we show up and say, oh, hi, I'm going to do my work and blah, blah, blah. But safety is not just in the workspace, but it's also whatever experiences that somebody's having at home. And what can often happen is that we see them coming into work, we see a student coming into university, and they are going through so much at home, but they don't have a way to communicate that because it's impacting their work, it's impacting their studies. I've heard of instances where a student, this is it's not region, I'm just giving an example, but a student somewhere in the world who unfortunately was experiencing domestic abuse, which was impacting their studies. It's something that had been going on for years. And all the academics in question could see was that their grades aren't doing well, but sometimes, they were getting high marks, sometimes they're getting low marks, but they didn't understand. And then it just so happened that it was identified that this person, this woman, had a bruise or something, and it was like, oh, are you okay? And that question, are you okay? And they asked it, is like, are you okay? Are you sure? That opened up this person to share what they've been going through.
The power of asking twice.
Right. There's such power in that. And I've started doing that. I've learned that there is a power in asking somebody twice, are you okay? You take that first response and then you ask it again, and you usually get the truth of their situation in the second response. And going back to, a safe environment, supporting women and creating a safe working environment is also making sure that there isn't there isn't silencing going on. So, then I feel that part of this includes having formalized a formal route for communication and communicating things that are going on, and informal routes. And I think there needs to be more structure. So when I say like an informal route, just having like a confidential advisor who people in the workplace or universities know they can go to. But I think it's really important that, well, I would say all the factors are important. But for me, I think because of seeing different ways in which if somebody doesn't feel safe in the overall sense, but then they don't feel supported to be able to communicate why they don't feel safe, whether it's something going on within the organization, the institute, or whether that's something going on in their personal life that's influencing their ability to work or their deliverables or achieving their deliverables. I think it's important that we look at how can we remove silencing, how can we create safe and brave spaces for women in science and education to communicate, to discuss their experiences. And then how do we then support organizations through using the toolkit to implement structures and put structures and systems in place that will support said individuals. Um, so that's the one that really stands out to me. And I'm even getting a bit goosebumps just thinking about what a world could be, how the world could be if we had safer spaces for women in science and education.
And having a voice and feeling safe that your voice is heard, and also amplifying voices is incredibly important. And I know that communication, science communication, and creating safe spaces is something that you're incredibly passionate about. Now, you mentioned earlier that FIP's a global organization, and giving people an environment in which they can succeed and safe spaces should underpin everything, no matter where we are, the organization that we work in, the region, the country. Can you give us a flavor of how you feel that we could address perhaps cultural and regional differences in the perception of supportive and safe working environments, and what can be done within the FIPWiSE initiative to do
Yeah,
that?
yeah, I think we can start off with training, some form of training, cultural and even regional sensitivity training. An example I have, which is not directly related to gender inequity and equality, but I remember being a PhD researcher. So my family heritage is Nigeria and Trinidad. And there was a technician that came in to fix one of our instruments, the DSC, which we know, you and I know so well. And he asked about my background. Sorry. He asked about my background, and I said, "Oh, I'm, family heritage, Nigeria, blah blah." He said, "Oh, that they sent somebody that the company was interested in, expanding in Nigeria, and they sent somebody, but unfortunately, the quote unquote the Nigerians didn't understand him." So I said, "Oh, okay, what happened?" He said, "Oh yeah, we sent a French speaking person." So I said, "Why would you send a French speaking individual to Nigeria?" They were like, "Oh, we thought
Mm.
they spoke French there." I said, what? What background? What did you research? How did you prepare yourself? How did the company prepare themselves to go into that country? Clearly not at all,
No, they
right?
didn't, and they
They
didn't give that individual an environment in which they could succeed either.
exactly,
Mm.
exactly. So with that in mind, I think there's something important about, you know, I think for us, we should be creating opportunities for that cultural sensitivity and regional training. And this is also formalizing that so we can also foster open discussions and safe discussions around cultural differences so that we are equipped with knowledge to navigate and respect various cultural perspectives as well. I think having regional representation is good. And sort of those champions as well, so that let's say somebody in whatever part of the world, part of the FIP community, even externally, can say, "Oh, I'm interested in implementing, let's say, the toolkit in my country, or my organization, which is based in whichever country. And then we can say, okay, great, we have an understanding of the cultural elements, but actually, can we just talk a little bit further about that? And then we can tailor the toolkit for use in that space.
Mm.
I think that's very important. Things that are already ongoing, making sure that like diversity, good diversity and representation in our webinars, workshops, and covering, not just one region issues and challenges, but globally, just making sure we're really having that representation. Um, I think, as you know, I do like to talk. And so with the talking, I would love to have more two-way feedback and communication. We need to hear from our community. We can come together and strategize and put together a plan, but we need to know, is that working and are we serving our community? And so I feel that that's something that we could do more. And through that communication and that open two-way dialogue, we will grow FIPWiSE to actually be able to represent ourselves globally and locally in the specific regions. And then also language considerations as well. Not everybody has English as their first language. They're different languages. And I think we probably need to start exploring how are we tailoring the content that we are putting out there, what content we're putting out there, how are we tailoring and taking language considerations into account to make sure that we're truly capturing our global community. So yeah,
And education is part of our name.
of
And
course.
so, but it's not just about educating others in the way of, positive practice. We do all need to keep educating ourselves on the differences, on,
Agreed.
yeah, on working practices, on behaviors, on expectations, on, cultural practices, etc. So it's the process of continuous learning, which is, key to pharmacy, key to pharmaceutical sciences. We're all very curious people.
Exactly. And I just want to add to that point on training and education. I think over time, when people are in a specific space, they think, oh, I know this, I know that. There is such power in refreshing your understanding of something. You may have some level of knowledge, but we must, as you said, continuous professional development. We must continue to educate ourselves. Things change. Understanding of things change, and it's important for us to be at the forefront of that as individuals, as professionals, as you said, in pharmaceutical science and education. So yeah.
And as humans as well. I mean,
And as humans.
we're never done learning. I'm learning more about myself
Mm.
as the years go by. Bahijja, this has been absolutely wonderful to speak with you, and I, could speak with you for probably 2 or 3 hours more, but I think we're nearly out of time. So I had the joy of hosting the FIPWiSE and Fearless podcast for a number of years, and talked to some wonderful women about their backgrounds. But the question that I always finished with asking, I hope you don't mind me asking you this, and it comes on the back of something that another wonderful female pharmacist of color said probably about 7 or 8 years ago, Ep2. She said that she never said to her children before she sent them to school, she never said, be good.
Mm.
She said, have fun and be fearless. And I thought it was wonderful. So every morning I would say that to my daughter before she would go to school, have fun and be. And she would quote back at me, fearless. And it then got to the point where she would say to me as I was going to work, have fun and be fearless. So my final question to you is, when have you been fearless and what happened as a result?
Oh, I mean, thank you for what you just said. It's even just your introduction to that question just made me feel so empowered and excited. Um, you know, it's interesting thinking about how to respond to this question because I could give you recent experiences, but I would actually like to talk about the first time that I felt fearless, that I recognized, that was my recognition of being fearless, and it is coupled with failure. Um, but I think I would like to think I grew in that failure. So taking us quite far back, it was my first year in as a student, as an undergraduate studying pharmacy. And I had a resit for a module, life sciences chemistry. I will never forget. Ah,
Painful.
yeah, it was painful. It was painful. I had a resit, and what was interesting was that up until then, I had experienced, different things, but up until then, I would say that there was an element of naivety and slight arrogance. I was at university, I was excited, I was living my best life. And I,
Invincible.
yes, I was
Hmm.
invincible. And I think in that in the funness, I'd forgotten that whilst it's nice to say to people, I'm studying pharmacy, I'm going to be a pharmacist, there was something I needed to work. Not to say I didn't, but I also needed to be comfortable with working on something that I wasn't necessarily fully interested in, let's say.
Yeah.
And when I had this resit, it was for those I had a summer placement in a community pharmacy, and they would all be like, "Oh, you're so intelligent, you're so amazing." But when I had to say, "Oh, I have a resit, and so therefore I will have to change the timing of my placement," I could see in their faces, "Oh, but we thought she was amazing. Like, oh, she's got this failure, right?" And coupled with that, I had, at the time, I don't know if, well, at the time, I had to pay for the resit, £60. And I say I had to pay, my darling mother had to pay for it because I was a poor student. And I was like, right, okay, I'm going to get through this resit, but I need to address the wider issue. What is the problem right now? What was the source of this failure? And I then realized that I needed to find the motivation. It wasn't enough for me to say, I'm studying pharmacy, and that's it. I needed to actually motivate myself. I wanted to be a pharmacist. I wanted to get there, but I had to challenge myself and not just assume that by virtue of being there, it's all going to come together. Like I didn't have to work at it. It would just all come together.
Hmm.
And so I've played netball for years. I used to play athletic and be an athlete, not so much now. I still play netball. And I was like, right, I'm always in competition with myself. I'm in competition with nobody else but myself. So I am going to aim for the highest form of qualification, which at the time I understood to be a PhD. And I'm going to go for that and we'll see what happens. And at the time I had not great grades. I wasn't doing it well. I remember I had a meeting with the head of school at the time and the head of teaching. And I said to them, I'm going to do a PhD, or at least I'll aim to do it. But I want to pass I want to get through my degree. And they were like, okay, but your grades aren't great. I was like, no, 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 don't worry. You just tell me what I need to do to get there. And I'll get there. But I just need you guys to understand that this is happening.
Yeah.
Long story cut short, each year I improved because I was motivating myself and I was being unapologetic. I didn't feel the need to conform when everybody was going out. I had to say, no, I actually need to study. I need to get this done. I need to get focused. And through that, making that decision, and for me, that felt like a fearless decision because I was in that point at 19 years old. I made the decision that I am not going to sit back and be idle in my own life experience.
Hmm.
I am going to take control. I'm going to learn to understand myself. I'm going to find out what motivates me and what's my passions. And that has been something that has driven me to where I am today, which is an understanding of myself. I am somebody that I am passionate. I am passionate in trying to solve problems. It drives me. That is what motivates me. So that is my driving force to achieve the things that I want to achieve. I am also understanding that I I'm competitive. I want the best. Part of that I use to channel, sorry, into anything I put my mind to, which is it's going to be a success. We are going to have impact. And the fearlessness in all of that is also linked with authenticity. I am only me. I can only be myself. And so for me, in order to be fearless means I need to be myself and accept all aspects of myself, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so, yeah, I would say what's happened as a result of that single decision, because I trace it back to that. That was the start of my renewed outlook, a new outlook on things. And I would say the result is that I have been able to live my life and do the things I'm passionate about with full force, unapologetic drive, with a view for impact and really to hopefully make the world a better place. That's really what it is.
Always the plan, isn't it? Leave it better than you found it. Plant the trees that you'll never sit under. Well, this has been wonderful. I've loved hearing about your aspirations, your achievement, and everything that you do with authenticity. And I really look forward to follow your chapter with FIPWiSE. It's going to be glorious, and I wish you every success. I have no doubt that you will achieve it all. Bahijja, thank you for your time today. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you so much.